We're live.
Cool. Should we maybe wait like 5 minutes for people to come in? Seems like a few people are coming on now.
Sure. Well, looks like we got enough people here. Do you want to get started? So I'm Alex Henderson. I'm the planning director with the Southwest New Brunswick Service Committee. And we have Xander here tonight who's going to do a presentation on the Dufferin Rural Plan. Xander, take it away.
All right, thanks, Alex. As Alex said, my name's Xander, and I'm a planner with the Commission. And I'm just going to share my screen here and go into the presentation. Okay, so hopefully that's broadcasting for everybody. And so just for everybody's reference now, assuming you got a letter in the mail. So if you got that letter, then you definitely live in Dufferin. But I have noticed there's a bit of confusion as to where Dufferin actually is. So it's this piece of land here, Todd's Point, Crocker Hill, the ledge, extending just up the Oak Haven a little bit, bounded by Dennis Stream over here. So you've got St. Stephen just across the Dennis Stream from Dufferin. So that's what we're talking about. And tonight we're sharing a first draft of the rural plan. And Dufferin actually has no rural plan right now. There is some regulation along the St. Croix corridor that's been in place since 1993. So 30 meters inland from the St. Croix River. There are some regulations that you may have encountered before. But this is the first draft of the rural plan that would cover the entire LSD, or local service district. So we want to give people a heads up of what we're thinking so far, get some feedback, hear what you might be thinking. If you have any concerns, any questions, we'd like to address them tonight. This is not a formal public hearing. It's more of an informal. We really just want to get people's feedback, and there's lots of opportunities to incorporate that. Nothing at this point is set in stone. We got here by really talking to community members and seeing that there's a desire to retain the largely rural residential character of Dufferin. And without any rural plan, there's actually nothing doing that. Any kind of development could pop up in Dufferin at any time. You could have an abattoir or industrial development because there's no rural plan. We also looked at trends in industries and demographics, trends in provincial policy and legislation, as well as planning best practices, consultation with the LSD chair and other community leaders. And we actually started way back in 2018 doing some community consultation. I was at the Fall Fair. We sent out a community-wide survey. We held a community meeting and also met with the Ganong Nature Park Board, given that that's a major part of Dufferin is Ganong Nature Park. So the way rural plans work, they kind of move from more general to more specific. And so the overall objectives are the most general that the plan gets. And those objectives are to preserve and enhance the beauty, environment, and rural character of the area, to regulate development so it's fiscally and ecologically sustainable, and to balance growth opportunities to minimize conflicts between different uses. Moving from the most general, policies are still fairly general. So there's a few different policy areas. There's residential, and the more specific policies are to keep incompatible non-residential uses out of residential zones, concentrate growth and avoid sprawl, and to, if there are going to be larger subdivisions, do them in a way that is sometimes called a bare land condo, sometimes called residential cluster development. Sustainable conservation subdivision is another way of referring to these. It's just a different way of subdividing land that preserves more open space, but it also allows smaller lots. There's some policies related to commercial and tourism, really just to limit the environmental impact of those uses. Industrial, there are no current industrial uses in the area, and to even entertain one, you would have to apply for an amendment to this plan, and it would be a public process with opportunities for feedback, and then it would end up going to the minister for approval or not. So it creates a serious process for anything like this to happen. While right now, there would be no process if an industrial development wanted to come in. So institutional, these refer to cultural, religious, social, and educational uses, and it is important to have those in a community. Dufferin, fairly limited in what those are right now. I believe there's a cemetery, and I think that's the only real institutional use at the moment. Recreation and open space, encourage recreational uses, preserve open space through passive recreational uses, encourage trails for active transportation and large developments. But in general, recreation is part of, I guess I'd say, the vision for Dufferin when we met with people earlier on, seeing this as a place where people would come to be active, experience nature, and obviously the nature park is a big part of that, but there's some other opportunities as well. With resource uses, really just focusing on agriculture and forestry, and doing those in a sustainable way. So not having clear cuts or anything like that, but ensuring that those more traditional rural uses can happen in Dufferin. Protection of water supplies, very important that no development depletes or degrades water supplies, and therefore that development should only happen where there is the adequate supply to do that. Heritage, history, and archaeology. There's some very interesting heritage in the area. It used to be a bit more of a commercial center around the Ledge Loop Road. You can still see some of that old piering down there, and some of those houses down there do have a bit of a colorful history. So this is a very general statement about protecting and preserving important resources that if those come to light, there really aren't any at the moment, despite that interesting history. Conservation of the physical environment includes considering the impacts of climate change and minimizing impacts on air, land, and water, as well as preserving biodiversity and minimizing the interruption of habitat for animals. And finally, developing only in areas where the physical environment allows for it. So if there are areas that are too steep or marshy, those would not be good places for development. Moving on to policies and talking about zoning is where things do start to get a little bit more specific. It's kind of where the rubber meets the road and things might start to make a little bit more sense. Some of the permitted uses in the rural, residential, and mixed use zones are hobby and small scale farming, home-based businesses, some businesses of limited size and scale, limited tourism uses, but anything like that would be subject to terms and conditions that the commission would place on that development. The mixed use zone is for a variety of land uses, hence the name, and it allows for commercial uses with those terms and conditions that we would apply, but no junkyards or industrial uses. Really thinking commercial that's in line with the type of development that already exists here. And any of that would have to have landscaping and 5-meter buffers if it borders with a residential zone. And there's not really too much in the way of community nodes. There's Oak Haven, Ledge Loop, and the Ledge where those meet. Maybe some potential for a very small scale commercial development on the vacant piece of land there. And there's the few existing commercial uses like Marshall's Garage, Southwest Electric. And then there are a number of home-based businesses as well, but those are kind of considered a secondary residential use. The agriculture and forestry zone really is undeveloped areas that don't have public road access. And the idea is to preserve those lands for that traditional rural resource sector, if you remember that policy I was talking about. And to do that, properties need to be kept fairly large. So limiting subdivisions, but undersized lots could be developed with some form of residential subdivision if there is more than half of the land being used for a primary purpose of farming, woodlot, lot, or conservation. So even just leaving 50% of the lot treed would count as a main conservation use in that case, and allow for residential as a secondary. But this isn't primarily a residential zone, even though it does allow for some residential uses. Very unlikely to happen, but we do try to plan for the future. So just in case a large-scale livestock operation was proposed, it would have to be quite far set back from any existing residential use. I believe it's 600 meters, and would have to meet environmental standards. There's none anywhere near us right now, and very unlikely to happen here in the future. The environmental sensitive zone, a little different from other zones in that it doesn't follow property lines. It follows water and wetlands. So there's some existing regulations already that this complements, like the wetland and water course alteration, the St. Croix corridor. So as you can imagine, in this zone, the uses would be fairly limited to protect properties and the environment, with setbacks for sea level rise, inland flooding risks, and other hazards. And so it's zoned as a buffer alongside creeks and surface water to protect from non-point source pollution. And it does limit tree clearing. It's not saying you have to plant trees, but if there are trees existing, they would be limited in what could be cleared. And that's to deal with erosion, maintain habitats, and natural aesthetics. Some single family dwelling and other very low scale residential dwellings are likely to be permitted, although where this interacts with the St. Croix corridor regulation, that might place additional restrictions on what can be done. The rural residential zone, when you think of sort of driving through Dufferin, this is mostly what you see are this type of rural residential development. Where you do have some hobby farming, home-based businesses as well. And the minimum 1 acre lots, that comes from the provincial subdivision regulation, but with that residential cluster development or conservation subdivision, it does allow for very interesting types of subdivisions under an acre. But those are, I'd say, a little complex, but they do allow a way around that provincial subdivision regulation. Most of your residential dwellings would be allowed, single family, garden suites. You can do up to 4 units, mini homes, that kind of thing. And really, we tried to limit this to where there is public road access, and that's partly because of provincial policy, partly because it limits sprawl, it preserves resources, and it's really generally just a planning best practice now to do that. And it does, this zone allows for those general provisions that we've talked about, hobby farming and home-based businesses, and a few other low-scale things as well. Coastal residential is similar to rural residential, but it limits the uses even more to residential. Pretty much that's it. Although you can have those secondary uses, tourism, hobby farms, home-based businesses. It doesn't allow older mobile homes or mobile home parks, but newer mini homes would be permitted. That's the main difference between this and the rural residential zone. And obviously this, because it's coastal, would be waterfront residential properties. Same idea with the minimum 1 acre, except for that special type of subdivision. And the nature park zone, I believe that's the last zone. Specifically for Ganong Nature Park, it allows for the current and potential future uses, recreation, accommodations, commercial with conditions, agriculture. And finally, this is the zoning map. And on the next page, I'll have a link to a copy that you can see for yourself and zoom in on, and if you're curious about your property. But you can see you've got the kind of spine of rural residential along the public roads, coastal residential along the southern half, mostly the agriculture and forestry zone along the northern half, the nature park zone where Ganong Nature Park is, and those sort of buffer areas of the ES zone going along the water courses and the St. Croix River. So for more information, you can find the entire draft plan and the zoning map at that website, which we can put in the chat. And with that, myself and Alex are happy to take questions and any feedback or anything you'd like to share at this point. And Alex might have a few things to say before we jump into that.
Thanks, Andrew. And just to note that the talk here is being recorded and will be posted on YouTube. So we'll actually stick a link for this talk discussion onto that webpage that Andrew posted. And by the way, that link is the same link you would have used to sign up for this meeting. So I think you all will be able to find it again. So what's going to happen here? I'm going to promote one person at a time to a speaking role, and we just asked the to get through everybody's comments tonight. So probably your comments to about 3 minutes, and we're just trying to hear what you have to say. Questions, comments, concerns. As we said, this is an open dialogue. We have time to make changes to the plan, and so nothing's set in stone, and we can discuss it all. So I'm going to start here by promoting Carl Longman to speak. So just a sec. Carl, you might have to unmute, but you're on.
Okay, one question I had was on the ES zone on the north shore of the peninsula, how wide is that buffer zone that you're proposing?
So that's an easy one to answer. It's 30 meters.
30 meters?
30 meters, and that corresponds with the limited development zone of the St. Croix corridor regulation.
Okay.
That's also a 30-meter buffer around the St. Croix that limits development as well. It does allow for existing lots to be developed for basically a single-family home with terms and conditions.
Right. Okay, that's the question I've got for tonight.
Great, thanks, Carl.
Thanks, Carl. Okay, Charles Leon, you're on. Might just take a second here. And you might have to unmute. Just ask you to unmute there. Charles, you want to try talking? I'm not sure if you're having technical issues or you don't want to speak, but I will come back to you and maybe keep working on your microphone. You may just be going to your settings there at the bottom left corner of your screen where it says mute. There's a little upward arrow you can click and it'll help you to find a microphone that works. So I'm going to go to the next person, Charles, and we'll get back to you. Dan Harrington.
Hey, Alex.
How's it going?
Not too bad, sir. How are you?
Very good.
Two quick questions, guys. The first one is the next step and when is that going to happen? And how long will that take in terms of the draft becoming a little closer to final?
So with this, we don't really have a tight deadline to take it to public hearing right away. What we're hoping to accomplish tonight is to obtain the feedback of the residents, and if there's changes that we're seeing that need to be made to the draft, we're going to take that and go back basically to the drawing board with some of those, and we'll probably talk to the province. But basically what will happen is once we have a draft that we feel adequately represents the needs in Dufferin and meets the public interest, we'll ask the provincial departments to review it. And I think, given the number of provincial departments, and you would know this, you were the former planning director, it does take a few weeks, certainly. So we're talking probably give it 6 weeks for that. So I think in total, we're probably 2 months away from a public hearing at the earliest.
Okay. And specifically, I guess I looked at the zoning map. I'm just wondering, was it a windshield survey? How did you come to the zoning map that you have currently, besides the public communication with residents?
Xander, do you want to go pick that?
Sure. So there was definitely a windshield survey involved. Dufferin is kind of an easier LSD to work with because it's so small. But we also used existing assessments from Service New Brunswick. So the land use map, we have some of those in our background studies. We also looked at sea level rise projections, things like that. And then aerial photography as well. But we also kind of hoped through this process, if there were things that were a little off, they would kind of shake out, and residents would let us know, like, hey, like this doesn't make sense, or this part of the process is also important for kind of nailing that down too.
Yeah, no, very best, guys. I won't take up any more of your time. Thanks now.
Thanks, Dan. Daryl Spires, I'm not sure if I got your last name right there, but Daryl, I'm going to promote you to speaking role. So you just might have to mute there. Daryl? Daryl, I think we can hear you, but I'm not sure if you're prepared. Oh, go ahead. All right, Daryl, if you don't want to speak, you don't have to, but we'll come back to you and ask again at the end. Okay, Donald Price, I'm promoting you to speaking role. Just be a moment here. All right, Donald, if don't wish to speak tonight, that's fine. If you do, you're just gonna have to unmute. Okay, I'll just move on to the next person, I guess. Oh, Donald, are you prepared to say a few words or a question?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just a little quiet, so maybe get closer to the microphone.
Is this any better?
That's better.
Yeah. Okay. I live down here on 417 Ledge Road in Barker Hill, Dufferin, of course. And I have approximately 20 acres in the lot I'm on, and I'm purchasing the cousin's lot a couple of doors down from me at 431. Now, this plan, in other words, there's going to be a certain amount of my property that I'm actually paying taxes on, but I can't use for anything. That's on account of supposedly waterfront property. Now, if you come back 30 meters on the thing, you can't even see the water. Nothing but trees and a big steep bank there. So how does this figure into the plan? I just finally got the audio working here a couple of minutes ago. It only seemed to be coming out of the little speakers on my computer. But I finally got it coming out through the TV, which I'm using for a monitor. It gives me things. So I'm wondering, this basically, I'm not going to be able to do anything with. So really, why would I be paying taxes onto this property if I can't use it? That would my query. Seeing as though the government might think that I might have an extra nickel that they might be able to take out of me. But anyway, I'd like to know how this affects the value of my property. I guess that's my biggest question. Could either of you give me some sort of direction in this regard?
Sure. I'm just going to repeat what I heard as your question, Donald. It's just a little bit quiet. So you were saying that you own a property, approximately 20 acres near Ledge Loop Road, and there's a part of the property that is zoned in such a way that you're concerned that you cannot use it and that you'd still have to pay taxes on it. Is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
Okay. So Xander, jump in if you'd like to, but I just wanted to say that I think with regard to the zone and your property and your taxes, there has already been in place for since 1993 the St. Croix corridor regulation, which prevented new homes being built within 30 meters of the river. You know, properties that were totally within that 30 meters, you can still build. Like if you have no way to build on that property, there's a way we can still get an approval through the planning committee. But for properties that have room to build beyond the 30 meters, that's where you can build. So that would be the most restrictive regulation. And again, that already exists. With regard to the way we drafted this, we didn't want to prevent people from completely not building on their property. For example, if you're in that environmental sensitive zone, you can still do residential uses if you're in 30 meters of water. And as Xander said, the main reason was to control non-point source pollution, meaning if you had industrial right next to a creek, for example, it's potential for pollution or runoff. So that's what we're really trying to deal with here. It's not to completely eliminate your ability to develop or use your property. It's to limit it in certain ways that in some ways actually can enhance property value because there's some protections. Because right now, anybody can build anything without any land use controls. So that can have negative effects on your property value in some ways as well. So there's two sides of the coin. And that's basically all I have to say, Xander. What do you want to add anything?
No, those are exactly the points that I was gonna bring up. But I mean, yeah, the point on protecting property value, you know, being on the water is, it has a lot of industrial potential, and Dufferin, as of yet, has never been kind of tapped in that way. But there's really nothing stopping it without a rural plan. So I would say, in general, across all the properties in Dufferin, having a rural plan would certainly serve to protect property values, although it could impact an individual property. But with the case of if you're on the St. Croix River, your development potential has been limited since 1993. And you've probably been paying the waterfront taxes on it ever since you've owned it, because they don't really change that based on the zoning.
Okay. I just actually inherited this property that I'm on now from the passage of my mother in 2012. And we had, I've seen shorefront mentioned on the tax bill. Now they call it shorefront. There's nothing but mud, rocks, and weeds in front of there, except when the tide floods. Then it comes up in a bit in the front. Now my property butts against an old creek bed, that runs over against the point on McDonald Road. And I've always questioned about shorefront property onto that. They seem to consider that as a prime piece of property, I guess. But anyway, I'll let it go for now. I just wanted to lead in and see if I could fathom out what was going on. You know, basically, I'm 71 years old. I'm not going to be on the face of this earth that many more years. So, in one sense of the word, it probably doesn't make much difference one way or the other. It's going to happen. I myself probably won't do anything with it, but whoever I leave the property to after that is certainly going to have to contend with a whole bunch of more regulations, it would appear. And I myself do not care much for big government. It's already too big as it is, and I don't think we need another layer to it. But however, politicians being what they are, will do what they want to do, and it really makes no difference what the people want to do. So I guess that's my 2 cents worth, maybe 3.5 by this time. So I'll turn it back over to you as someone else who would like to jump in there and have something to say as well. Thank you for your response.
Thank you, Donald. And one thing maybe to note is what your property tax bill says your property is and how they describe it is up to a Service New Brunswick assessor, and that's and our names sound similar, but we're not Service New Brunswick. And what's on your property tax bill and what's on the zoning, they may be separate worlds sometimes, so you can't really equate them. So I'll move on to the next person here. We have Donald Price. Donald, just take a moment for you to be able to just unmute yourself, and if you're ready to provide your questions or comments. I don't know if you don't wish to speak, Donald, it's fine, but you're just gonna have to unmute yourself if you want to speak. Let's give you another moment there, Donald, if you're just trying to figure out what the unmute button is.
I'm having a bit of trouble.
Oh, no worries. I can hear you.
Okay. I'm having a bit of trouble here. I don't know. I've had a bit of computer problems here for the last few days anyway, so it's probably not the fault of this particular seminar, but anyway, I just finally saw a sign that said you'd like me to unmute, so I finally got the thing to click. It doesn't always click every time I push a button over it.
It's been better if we could meet in person, but it's
Okay, that's my main concern here for this evening's meeting. Thank you for your responses there.
Donald, if I could just summarize what you were saying, is it your main concern was just the technology?
Yes.
Okay.
It's like technology. It's like computers. It takes twice as long to do half as much.
And just wanted to say, and this is a good question or a good point that Donald raised, this is not an ideal format for everybody. We recognize that. So we're actually, our office, sitting in the office here, it's just 33 Wall Street, which is Dr. Golding's old office. And we're come in and have a chat with us because, as we said, they're still at least several months away from this being a more final. You can just drop in, look at the maps. We'll print you off maps that you can take home. And we're happy to have a planner talk with you and to kind of have that kind of We have some code regulations how we do that, but you can drop into the office to chat if that's easier. So I'll move on to the next person. Thanks, Donald.
Okay, thank you.
All right, we have someone who's on a Galaxy S10e. I don't know your name, but we're going to promote you to a speaking role.
Hi, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Yeah, it's Joel Hanson.
Oh, hi, Joel.
Hi. I just got a couple of things. Does the jurisdiction of the parish of Dufferin under this program include Cook's Aqua Hatchery at Oak Bay? Or is that in another parish?
I believe is St. David, Alex. St.
Yeah.
David?
Yeah, okay, because that raises the issue all around Dufferin are tidal federal waters and in fact international water. Does that affect what you guys are trying to do along the shores?
I wouldn't say it necessarily affects it. The jurisdiction of, I guess, this plan goes to the ordinary high water mark.
Okay.
Does that answer your question?
More or less, but I know that there's this overhanging federal thing because the St. Croix Estuary Project.
Yeah.
There's the International Waterway Commission.
Yeah.
That fires up every now and then. But anyway, it's just interesting. It does apply to our area.
Yes.
And the other thing, just for an example, Pine Point Road is a private road that runs down from the ledge adjacent to my property to the water, to the St. Croix, and it has power already. NB Power has a full system down to it. So is that going to factor into the plan? Is that going to open up that more than say somewhere else? Would that be considered a sprawl if NB Power is already there?
I guess we'd have to look at it. Leander, can you pull up the zoning map?
Is it the yellow spur that I see going down? Yeah.
If it's a private road, I don't.
Yeah, I think I'm looking
but
at
that's. I believe it's right there, right? Pine Point.
Yeah. Yeah. So why is that yellow?
I don't believe.
I see the Pine Point. It goes back to the blue.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah,
It's
I
only
see that.
yellow, I believe, along your property there, which is already residential.
Right. So the fact that road is there and is seen and is in the map and does have power, does that affect what you guys are doing at all?
Well, it isn't a public access road, so even though it has power, it's not a DTI road. Like the Donald Road, that's a DTI road. It's plowed by DTI. Pine Point Road isn't, and therefore the province wants to limit subdivisions off of roads like that.
Okay.
It's the same with the Hannah Road. After you get past, I don't know, it's that cul-de-sac at the end of the Hannah Road where it turns into a private road.
Yeah.
And there's a few more on Todd's Point Road, like Barron Lane. And you can see there are some subdivisions coming off of some of those already, but this would limit that, except in the case of that special type of conservation subdivision.
Sorry.
Okay.
And one thing I should add to that is there is the ability to subdivide off a private road. It doesn't take that away. It's a similar process, which you'd be well aware with, Joel, as a lawyer, that you go to as a private access subdivision. But with this zone, where subdivisions for large scale subdivisions, we're encouraging them to go to the residential cluster type of subdivision. If you get over, I believe it's 3 extra lots divided off the original parcel.
Okay. And those are 5-acre lots, right?
No, in this you could do 1 acre. But once you go over a certain number of lots, over 3, and then you're getting into a larger scale subdivision, and that's where we're suggesting using that more conservation type of subdivision model, the cluster development type, where you can do a large number of lots. It's just using a bare land condo model, which is a little bit of paperwork. So they wouldn't be.
Yeah. Okay, kind of finally, before I finish here, is who will decide, like under your proposal, who is going to, is there going to be a planning committee in the LSD service? Who makes those decisions as a, say, planning approval? Would that be you guys, the province, who?
So that would be, it would be us, and actually there already is. So the PRAC, the Planning Review and Adjustment Committee, I mean, technically it would operate in Dufferin, although I guess there wouldn't be anything, would it be doing anything? No, I guess not. Yeah, I guess that's true. Yeah, so it would mean that variances, if you needed to vary the plan, or rezoning. Well, rezonings are actually done by the minister. PRAC will give an opinion on it, but PRAC would control the variances. Although they do already deal with if there's a private access subdivision, that would be something they would deal with regardless of the rural plan in Dufferin.
Yeah, I understand. That sounds right. So what you're saying is not much is going to change. There's going to be, you're proposing a new plan, but it'll still be handled through the Planning Commission, the Southwest Planning Commission. Yeah, okay, thank you.
You're welcome. All right, we're going to move on to Jim. Jim, but just you have to unmute yourself there and try talking.
Yes, can you hear me?
We can hear you.
Good evening. My name's Jim Taylor. I live at 160 Ledge Loop Road. And my question is, what process would I need to follow to change the zoning on my property as it stands now? And the reason I ask that is that even though I only have a small 1 acre property, it is actually there's two parcel identification numbers for this property, because one section of it was before, to the previous owner, was acquired through the Quieting of Titles Acts. So that's why there's two PIDs. There's only one assessment number, PAN number. So when I saw your map, one part of my property is zoned one way and the other part is zoned another. And I think really they should be zoned the same.
Fair point. We'll take a look at your property specifically, and you're not zoned anything right now. So
no, I understand that, but
so what
I figured it would be easier to get it fixed before it was zoned than wait until it was and then make it more difficult.
Yeah. No, for sure. So yeah, we'll take a look at that, and we have to look specifically if you're trying to develop that property as two different properties. We can talk with you about that, but it'll just be a longer conversation. So I encourage you to just give Rob a call.
Okay. Yeah. Right now, it's shown as the smaller portion to the south is zoned as, or deemed as, coastal residential, and the bigger portion of the property to the north on the corner of the Ledge Loop Road and the Todd's Point Road is deemed as mixed use. So I'm thinking that it should all be mixed use probably, or all residential. Really doesn't make too much difference to me, I guess.
Okay. Yeah, we'll have a look at that, and know for sure. That's
Yeah, I know the property you're talking about, Jim. I can tell which one it is. So yeah, we'll definitely take a look at that.
Okay, well, appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah.
all right. Have a good night. I'm gonna go to a couple people with their hands up. I'm gonna try Charles again.
Hey, how are you there?
Hi.
Hi. I'm sort of new to the area, only been here for 3 years. I have a lot of questions about, I live on Ledge Loop with a shore lot and a 3-acre lot on the other side of the road. And I have some questions about what I can do and can't do with the property and what the status is of certain areas of the property that has streams running through it. And you have a multicolored designators on the property to go through. Looks like it's following a stream, and it's like a dirty green. It's hard to describe when I don't have it visually in front of me. I'd like to come and talk to somebody or yeah, where I could ask.
Think, either give us a call, come by the office. I think you're referring to the environmentally sensitive zone that runs along the water.
Yeah, it goes up my property's on the very corner of Ledge Loop and the river. It's the bottom south corner, 107 Ledge 107. And there's like 2 or 3 different colors back there, and I'm new to this whole thing out in New Brunswick. I'm from Ontario originally, and I have some questions about what do all these colors mean. Okay, I have some idea. I have some idea what they mean, but not 100%.
Xander, would it make sense to pull up the map again and we can just look at Ledge Loop closely?
Yeah, we can do that.
I'm in the bottom right of the loop. The lot in the corner. 2 lots, a shore lot and a.
Down here?
Yeah, right there. That's my
Okay.
front yard. That's my front yard.
Okay. Gotcha. Yeah, so with the 30 meters of the water,
Yep.
that's going to be the environmentally sensitive zone.
Yeah. Okay.
And these are all proposals again. Nothing. This doesn't exist yet. This is all hypothetical.
Gotcha.
In that zone, you're also dealing with the St. Croix corridor where that is. So
yep.
You can, in that 30 meters, you can develop a single family dwelling with terms and conditions.
Really?
Yeah.
That close to the river?
Because it's an existing lot, yes. But we would look at terms and conditions around tree clearing.
Yeah, that's all cleared.
The topography of the site.
Okay, well, I don't want it anyways. I'm not going to build something over there. It would be pointless. It's too small. Where I am interested in possibly building something in a couple of years is at the back of my property, where it's shaped like a hockey stick.
Yeah, yeah. So it's
go to the right. Go to the right. Go to the right there. If I wanted to build a house there, what's the process? Or can I?
Yeah, so that's the coastal residential zone, and that allows for single family dwellings, some other types of residential development.
Okay.
And really the process is you would come apply for a building permit. We'd have to do some checks on the zone, see exactly where you're planning on building. Yeah. Within 30 meters in that dirty green, there's also the provincial WAWA, the wetland and water course alteration. So if you're going to do anything in there, you'd actually have to apply for a permit through the environment department.
No, it wouldn't go back that far. Is that 30 meters? Is that 30 meters radiating out from that little stream?
Yeah, and that's where that green is. So they
wow.
come with each other.
That's a pretty big area for a little dribble. I mean, seriously, it's like it's like you left your tap running. Anyway, okay, I understand.
Yeah, but this area along the road there, yeah, if you want to do a house, something like that, I foresee any issues. You just come apply for a building permit and go through a normal kind of building.
Is there a minimum acreage or square footage or whatever that has to be in existence?
There are some lot standards in the zones. Not in the zone, sorry, there's general standards. I think given the size of your property, there wouldn't be any issues. I'd have to look a little bit more specifically.
Okay, it's approximately 3 acres.
Yeah, I think 3 acres is, I don't think there would be any issues with one single family home, that kind of thing.
Yeah, just back in that corner, I may have let my son build a single family residence back there at some point in the future.
Yeah, I don't think this would stop you. Again, we'd have to look specifically when the application
Sure.
comes in, but no, I don't think that would be an issue.
Okay, so where do I go to when I get more interested or more information? Who do I go and talk to or see? Yourselves?
Yeah, you come talk to us, and I'll put our address in the chat box.
Awesome.
Just in St. Stephen.
Yep.
Near the hospital, 33 Wall Street.
Okay.
I'll pop that in the chat. And again, if anyone has specific property questions, I definitely encourage you to either stop by or give us a call or shoot us an email. So I'll put all of those in the chat box so you can.
Yeah, make your contact information available. Okay, thank you, sir. Have a good day.
Thanks, Charles. Okay, we're going on to Jill Grimmer. Jill, you're gonna have to unmute.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, it's actually Tina, her daughter.
Okay.
Yep, and she's sitting here beside me. But first I wanted to say hi to Dan Harrington. He was my first boss at Charlotte County Waste Watchers. So hi, Dan. Anyways, guys, I was just curious if the plan or PRAC is going to consider all septic and well system integrities. So I'm talking about the effect of not having these up to standard to protect the ES area. So for example, some people might still have oil drums and, you know, yeah.
And if a pig farm goes in next door, you're gonna get a new well.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jill.
Like I know when I bought here in Crocker Hill, the septic was not at all up to snuff. And, you know, having gone to school for environmental sciences, I did the right thing and I, you know, put it in instead of letting that gray water just run off. But looking going forward and, you know, sort of having a plan, which I think is great, will there be a provision to ensure that these, you know, septics and wells are kept up to snuff to protect that ES area?
So Jill, the issuance of permits for septic is not done through our office. It's done through the Department of Public Safety. That said, we do touch on some of the safety concerns with septic when it comes to planning. So the size of lots is important, and distance from wells, like with different types of land uses, like agriculture.
Agriculture,
You don't
yeah.
want a manure pile too close to your well.
Mm-hmm.
So that's regulated through this. We also looking at if you had a bare land condo, a more residential cluster development where
Right.
things are smaller and a smaller space to preserve more of the lot to be natural or to be farmed. Well, then we are looking at a different type of non-conventional septic systems possibly. So there would be potentially the Department of Environment gets involved to approve it. So really, when it comes to failing septics, it's really something that public safety will have to have a look at if there's a concern, certainly raise it with public safety or the Department of Environment, but it's not something that the commission.
It's not going to be regulated because certainly there's got to be some, you know, homes that just, you know, just the integrity isn't there, right, in the septic system. And unless the owner themselves were to go about changing things, it's not going to be flagged.
One other thing I should mention though is that when we do get a building permit application for, let's say, adding several bedrooms to a house, there are more people living and using that septic, we do need to obtain a septic approval through the public safety inspector. So you could come to a point where that septic field is no longer be able to handle the capacity. So
Right, if you're building or, but not, you know, not if you're already a homeowner for X amount of years or you're buying. You know, if you've gotten a building permit, it can get caught, but otherwise there's no sort of provision to, you know, do the right thing, let's say.
Yeah, and that may be an enforcement matter for Department of Environment or Public Safety that you could raise. But again, there is some due diligence on each owner to keep their septic up to snuff.
So then you were talking about, you know, sort of putting in, you know, 4 units in those sort of cluster areas. And I kind of started to wonder about, well, would, you know, let's say a 4-unit, you know, complex went up next to me, would there be some sort of provision in the plan that would regulate the frequency of them to have their septic pump so that it wouldn't, you know, sort of compromise my well system?
Basically, it's the on-site technical guidelines for septic that would be used to approve it, and that's where the public safety would look at approving it. With regard to you know, how often people pump out their septic tanks, I mean, there is due diligence on everybody to maintain their own systems correctly, but if there is an environmental concern or contamination, I certainly would raise it with the Department of Environment.
Okay.
Yeah, when we're looking at these lots for, say, like there is a minimum requirement size for lots that have the ability to do 4plexes or anything like that. You have to put larger than that.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. All right, Ron Flood, we're gonna ask you to unmute if you wish to speak. Rod, we can't hear you just yet, so I'll give you a moment. I just saw you're typing in there, but still can't hear you. Just hear if you want to speak. Do you want to just type in yes or no if you wish to speak? There is an unmute toggle. I'm not sure if you're using a cell phone or you're on a computer. There should be this little, what looks like a little microphone with an X through it. You just need to click that again. It should be along the bottom of your screen. And you might have to tap the screen once to get that toggle bar up. There you go. Rod?
Hello.
Hi, can you try saying something?
Hi, do you hear me?
We do.
Well, it's not Rod, but it's my partner. This is Diane. And hi, Xander. You're the one that helped me when I hit the deer sometime this winter. I don't know if you remember, but I do remember you.
I got in the office and I called Department of Natural Resources, and they said the deer was probably fine.
Well, I hope so. And I thank you for stopping, you and your partner, wife. So yes. So my question, I'm on Moran Lane on Todd's Point. Rod and I, and we have 2 properties. One, I live right now in my house because I work here during the week. And then we have a second property on Moran Lane, but we don't have septic there. So our question is to you guys, and I can stop in the office and talk to you guys. I am working at the Lincourt Manor, so I know exactly where you are. So how hard or easy it is, or if you can tell us that we don't have septic on our second property, how hard would it be to be going from an environmental sensitive area to a coastal zone? Or is that possible at all?
Well, what were you proposing to build on that property in the environmentally sensitive zone?
Well, probably a mini home, how, you know, those tiny homes, whatever, in the future. But right now, it's not in the like immediate future. It would be like maybe 2 years down the road. But I just want to know if we have the grandfather clause attached to our second property, because right now where I'm living, we have a septic, we're on the water, everything's beautiful, but it's the second property we're kind of worried about. So we don't have septic there, we don't have electricity, but we want to develop that. So I'm just wondering what's possible? How soon do we have to do it? Or can we have grandfather clause?
The ES zone doesn't prevent you from doing residential type of development. So there are some stipulations for what kind. So for example, the mini home, the zone standard is to make sure the mini home is relatively new. And that's actually more of just an aesthetic thing, because there's a lot of people put a lot of investment in. There's concern with very, very old mobile homes coming into properties, right next to properties, tearing down property values. But other than that, you can do camps, you can do single family residence in that zone. It's just the limitation on the amount of trees you remove.
Oh, yeah.
Because, you know, these are within proximity to water. You could be, though, in an area where you are also on the saltwater, and that's where the St. Croix corridor also overlays this. And St. Croix corridor has different rules as well to overlay this. So again, you probably should drop in and have a chat with us, and we'll look at it. But the ES zone does not mean no development.
Okay, well, that's good to know, and I thank you for that. And I will stop in. I was planning tomorrow and stop in and get more information about this, because my partner is coming on the weekend. I know you guys are not open on weekend, but I'll get as much information I can get from you guys tomorrow, and then yeah, we'll chat. Thank you so much.
Welcome. I think that's everybody who wanted to speak. We went through everybody. Maynard, did you see anybody who didn't get the chance to speak?
Don't believe so. I mean, if you still wish to speak, I would say just pop something in the chat or raise your hand. We'll give it another minute or so. But if we don't hear anything, Daryl Spires has raised his hand.
Okay, Daryl.
Hi, can you hear me now?
We can hear you.
Sounds like one of those cellular commercials, right? I just would like to say that I'm pleased to see some plan being developed, and I'm encouraged that it seems to be in good hands with you people. I particularly got worried when I've seen the evolution of the corner of the number 3 highway and our main road going past St. Stephen. And I was keen to read about whether scrap yards or salvage yards, or what we used to call junk yards, are allowed in our rural plan. So I believe it's been covered properly. If you had any other comments you can add to that, I'd appreciate it. I see that development out there as I know there's been some interest in a hotel out there, for instance, but I think most tourists, if they were going by and saw the mess that's out there, I doubt they'd ever even want to stay in a hotel out there. So I just want to make sure that that any of our neighbors are not kind of going to be squeezed out in that sort of a situation. Thank you.
Yeah, Xander, do you want to go?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, so there's no, I mean, junkyards, scrap yards, salvage yards, whatever you want to call them, they're considered an industrial use And there are no industrial uses allowed in the rural plan. And again, I'll point out right now, where this plan isn't in place, they could happen. So this is definitely one of the reasons why we felt there was a community need for a rural plan. The character of Dufferin is pretty clear. It's rural, it's residential. There's opportunities for small scale commercial, but it definitely is not the place for any of that type of industrial development. Anything mixed use in that kind of commercial, we would place terms and conditions on. There would be buffering and screening, so it wouldn't be visible from the road or from other properties. So these are all things that we definitely considered when we were working on this plan.
Yeah, maybe I just like that too. We it's not like there is a need to have salvage yards somewhere, and
I agree.
They provide a service. That said, like you pointed out, when you have an unplanned area, and that would be Dennis West and LSD, they do not have a plan. So development, as Andrew said, can spring up anywhere of any type. And so when you can see the problem when you don't have a plan. They're trying to develop this hotel and this commercial highway node there, and it's harder when the uses around the development site can take down the property value or take away some of the views and things like that. So this is the challenge of planning: is how do you accommodate the impact, like salvage yard, and where can you plan for them? And we looked and scanned Dufferin for what was the potential for aggregate, what's the potential for industrial. Really, there is not anywhere that has road access. It's just not. It's really Dufferin just does not have any really good locations to zone for industrial. So it was left out quite intentionally.
Yes, thank you. And I do agree there's certainly a need for it, and it causes some good employment, and recycling is an important part of our environment. It just needs to be a better plan, and in a more secure or selective and attractive situations. Thank you.
Yeah, and I'll just add to that. Not sort of more generally, we're doing a similar process for Penfield as well, and there we found a large area of land that isn't near any residential development, that avoids most of the environmental issues, that we've identified as this is the potential for some kind of industrial park. That's kind of why industrial parks exist, is because it makes sense to put all those uses together somewhere that isn't super close to residential development. So there's also the St. Stephen, I guess it's called a business park, but you can have those uses there, and they're not lowering anybody's property values. There's not causing issues for tourism. They're not impacting residential neighbors. So there's a place for everything. But in this case, that place is not Dufferin.
I agree. Thank you very much.
All right, well, I think we have everybody. We're going to post this video on the webpage there. It's just, we have it, it's also on YouTube. They can go on the Commission's YouTube page. But that concludes the Q&A session and this meeting. Again, please drop into the office. We're right here, local, down the road, and happy to chat about your development inquiries. And we'll, I guess, see you guys later. And before this becomes actually a regulation, we'll be for a public hearing, and it will be put in paper. Likely, we will also be putting some notice on our website as well. So stay tuned for that. And everybody have a good night.